Hey, everybody. Welcome. And, Matt, tonight we're going to see just how much Lane Kiffin is actually worth as we get Mississippi. Do they drop by not playing a game at all?
Yeah, I would be hard pressed to say that the committee is going to drop them. I feel like that would set a very dangerous precedent, just in terms of the way they can handle all of this stuff moving forward. I get it. Lane Kiffin was important to that program and that team this year. He played an important role, specifically on the offensive side of the football. But what still remains is all those players. People will point to FSU in 2023 and be like, well, you left them out because they lost Jordan Travis. They lost a player on the football field.
Right.
I didn't agree with that decision when they made it back in 2023.
I didn't
And
either.
I definitely wouldn't agree with the decision to punish an Ole Miss football team for a decision that Lane Kiffin made um, for himself. So it would be entirely unfair to punish this football team for something that they had no control over.
And, you know, to your point, uh, last week they were asked about, the pending possibility of what would happen if a quote unquote one of these teams, quote unquote, would happen to lose their head coach, would that affect, the rankings? And they said straight up, yeah, it could.
Yeah.
And
I,
that's what worries me is that, you know, forget what Kiffin did, all right? But you're punishing guys for, kids who, a team who played all year long because the selfishness of their head coach.
Yeah, you just can't do that. It's just it's not fair. You cannot punish these kids for something that is not in their control. I feel like it's that plain, it's that simple. They still deserve to host a football game. Again, this is the same group of players. The
Mm-hmm.
same group of players. I get that maybe you're going to do some things schematically a little bit differently, and maybe it will have an impact. Saying that it won't have an impact entirely, but unlike what happened with Florida State in 2023, you had a couple games of work to kind of
Right.
base off what you were going to be
Yeah.
without
He had a
their
body
quarterback
of
Jordan
some
Travis.
sort.
By the way, what they were without Jordan Travis as quarterback was still an ACC champion, but that's neither here nor there. You don't get that chance, um, so you can't punish these guys based off what you think or what you believe. That's entirely wrong and messed up. This is a system that people wanted, this expanded playoff, and in this expanded playoff, and based on precedents you've set, you cannot punish this football team.
You would hope.
Yeah,
You
you would
would
hope.
indeed hope that they're not going to do it. We'll find out by tomorrow. We'll be able to talk about it. My old buddy Tim Brando went off on, on the ESPN crew, game day crew,
Hmm.
um, and Timmy is not shy. I will give him. He's one of the nicest guys you're ever going to want to meet. Lives, by the way, in Louisiana, um, and has, for all the years he has been a national broadcaster, he never left his home not that far away from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So the king of the bayou down there basically went off on Sabin and Kirk Street for shilling for Texas.
Yeah, I cannot stand it. Kirk Herbstreit is now on this tour
Mm-hmm.
talking about Texas. He used Alabama made a schedule adjustment today
Mm-hmm.
in which they moved one of their matchups with USF back. And Kirk Herbstreit made this sweeping declaration on how we were going to see stuff like that throughout the country, regarding non-conference matchups and how it's going to kill non-conference matchups if Texas is punished. Stop. It's so disingenuous from these guys, and I
Mm-hmm.
get it that ESPN is financially vested in the SEC. I get it. That's fine. And again, you go back to the Jimmy Sexton. Jimmy Sexton reps Sark. Sexton reps Saban. I believe he reps Kirk Herbstreit as well.
Yeah.
Um, Another guy who was on ESPN, Rex Ryan, vouching for Lane Kiffin, also rep by Jimmy Sexton, by the way. This was a PR nightmare when Lane made this move, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Sexton is one of the best in the business when it comes to agents. So
Mm-hmm.
thinking that he wasn't going to be able to, or not be able, but he wasn't going to go out and attempt to do some some calming of the waters
Right.
here in terms of the PR of everything, uh, you would have been lying to yourself. It's just come in such it's the least subtle way possible. It
Right.
it's it's so bad all the way around, just in terms of this like bubble, because now you feel like everything that all these guys do, it feels like everything's intertwined. So when they're shilling for Texas, and when they're shilling for Lane Kiffin, and they're going out here and they're trying to defend this stuff and lobby for this, it feels so like financially motivated that I just can't get behind it, because not only does it feel financially motivated, the reason that it feels that way is because you're not making a coherent argument.
Mm-hmm. Timmy didn't leave stop there either. By the way, um, he here's another one of his tweets. This was an exemplary move work by Marty, and he's talking, about, of course, about when Marty was talking to Kiffin whenever he got there, and it's like, oh, the Keith Carter wouldn't let me coach the team. The team wanted me to coach them, in the playoffs, but they wouldn't allow me to do it. And so here's Tim's response. This was exemplary work from Marty. And I'll admit, many in the national media that don't know how the CFB works at the highest levels may not understand why Keith Carter couldn't allow Kiffin to coach the playoffs. I grew up in the CFB. The essence is, in my generation, comes from stems of love of this. Once Lane made it clear he was taking the LSU job, that was more important to him than winning a national championship at Ole Miss. He had to go. I applaud Carter. He goes, I would have packed up. If I were Carter, I would have sent the security team to him and packed his office up and not left him back in the building. By the way, LSU, you got your guy. Good luck.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
So Timmy didn't hold back.
I mean, as he shouldn't. Anyone who has gone and done like it's just been a really bad PR week. It feels like
Mhm.
for ESPN. Like for as rough as it was with Lane Kiffin and all the stuff that he's done, the stances that they have took, and staunch at that, like they've been very pointed in their stances that they've taken. They're horrible looks for every last one of them. For Nick Saban, who, I mean, Lane Kiffin didn't say it, but Nick Saban told him to take that LSU head coaching job.
Right.
At least in reading the tea leaves, that's what I gleaned from it. Because he chose to leave out what Saban's comments were to him. He told everybody what Pete Carroll told him to do, which was take it. I feel like Saban's comments on game day made it very clear and obvious what direction he was going to, I guess, kind of lean Lane Kiffin towards, because Lane had made it clear that he wanted to talk to Saban about it. And he said, look, the LSU job is one of the best in the country. What they're able to do there in terms of high school recruiting, all that stuff is very true. You can't get around the fact that it's true. But protecting this guy and hiding behind the college football calendar is completely wrong. And I'll give him I honestly got to give him some credit though, because it's working. You just see some of the general populace online. There are people, at least in Louisiana, that feel like Lane Kiffin is being victimized for all of this. And
That's a joke.
yeah, I mean, honestly, props to him. If you believe that, then I'll let you keep living in fantasy land.
Well, this not for nothing. Okay, I'm old. Nick Saban pulled the same damn trick. Nick
Mm-hmm.
Saban left LSU to go to the Miami Dolphins, then left the Miami Dolphins by the way, via email and went to Alabama. So, I give full credit to Nick as a coach, but he has absolutely no credibility in talking about how to handle this when he did exactly the damn same thing that Lane did.
Yeah, no, I like I said, the Lane Kiffin stuff at this point to me is almost I'm I'm exhausted by it at this point.
Yeah, me too.
I think we've gotten kind of a resolution at it all. Lane is who he is and will always be who he is.
Mm-hmm.
There is no location, there is no person that will change that. Um, Ole Miss has a chance to be better off. People people talk about what Lane Kiffin did for that program. Go look at Lane Kiffin's record at Ole Miss prior to Pete Golding becoming the DC.
Mm-hmm.
You find some stuff out. That defense really turned around once he arrived there, and Ole Miss started winning a lot more consistently once Pete Golding was the defensive coordinator there. So there's a chance that Pete Golding comes in and he does great things for Ole Miss. I'm not saying that will happen. I'm saying there's a chance for that.
Sure.
There's a chance for a multitude of things. But now everybody's attention should be turned to BYU and Penn State and the ongoing battle that they have for BYU's current head coach, Kalani Sitake.
Mm-hmm. That's been a very quiet um, negotiation deal going on there, and I do believe I'm a little curious about that pick though. He's a hell of a coach. Don't get me wrong. I have great respect for him as a coach, but I mean, it's not. He's never had any experience in the eastern part of the country.
Yeah, it's an interesting fit if it goes through. I think Penn State's thing is they're kind of going off of like this is a guy that's done more with less. It's
Mm-hmm.
really what they would look for when they went and got James Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
I think quite honestly, had they not had the history of Joe Paterno and Jerry Sandusky, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like Pat Fitzgerald would have been a guy that was right there at the top of their list. I just feel like they probably thought that was something that
Yeah,
they
it's a
couldn't
bridge too far for them.
yeah, they couldn't dive into a coach with somewhat of a checkered past, even though he was cleared of any knowledge of it. It's still something that you don't really want to um, link yourself to, just
Right.
based on the history. So I get that. In terms of Satake, it is interesting how he would fit at Penn State. I like he he landed 5-star quarterback Ryder Lyons,
Mm-hmm.
but was that a commitment based on Lions' love for BYU, or is that a commitment based on Lions and more religion based commitment for him? Because in terms of devout Mormonism,
Right.
there's not a lot of places that are going to be like really good fits for that
Right.
necessarily. BYU is one of those places, and
Mm-hmm.
so I wonder if that didn't play a factor into that. He's not been a guy who's just recruited his butt off every single year. He's done a good job, don't
Mm-hmm.
get me wrong, and he has built that thing into a winner since 2020.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a bit of a longer road to get there for BYU with Satake as well. He had some downs as high as the highs have been.
Well, we know you talking about the religious aspect of it. We know that that's a huge factor. Steve Young, who was recruited by pretty much every college in the country, um, went to BYU because his great grandfather was one of the founders of the university,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it was something that was his, right. I mean, that's what he did because it was very important to him. And look, if that is key to your life, then God love you. Do what you got to do, and it worked out for him. And of course, Lavelle Edwards, who was a coach at the time, probably was one of the best coaches for quarterbacks in the country. So was, he didn't really go someplace where the guy didn't know what the hell he was doing. Um, that worked out well for him. Now you're mentioning in our pre-show about a big flip that might have happened.
Yeah, so this is my understanding of the situation. Um, Jared Curtis has supposedly flipped to Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what I think happened is that Jared Curtis was in the beginning stages of flipping to Vanderbilt, and the people at Rivals who have been, I mean, they have been just frothing at the mouth with this story for the better part of a month. I mean, pretty much every show it feels like Steve Wiltfong has done in terms of recruiting. He's touched on Jared Curtis and why he might go to Vanderbilt. I mean, they have been hammering this thing home, milking it for everything it's worth. And it feels like they got the information that it was coming and they jumped the gun with it. You know, from everything, it appears that Hayes Fawcett, who works for Rivals and On Three, he's a guy that's in charge of making a lot of edits and stuff for these
Mm-hmm.
commits. It appears that he was asked to make an edit. I'm not sure if he was asked to put it out, but he did put it out. I think they just jumped the gun on it. To be honest with you, I think they jumped the gun on it in terms of Jared Curtis had not had the time to reach out to the right people at Georgia to notify them of his decision. This is one
Mm-hmm.
that I would still expect to go Vanderbilt's way. One that people are going to mark as a seismic shift, or some send tremors throughout the SEC in terms of what Vanderbilt's done.
Yeah, it's a little bit
And
of a there for
huh?
you. Yeah, we're having just a Matt. You're having just a little bit of a mic issue. It's crushing for some reason. Um, yeah, I mean recruits at this point in time, they'll flip, they flip back. You never really know. They think they make up their mind, then they don't make up their mind, then they do. So we'll have to see how that works out with Georgia.
Jim, can you hear me again?
Yeah, we're fine now.
Okay, all right. Yeah, and I just put out an article on Sports Talk Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
uh, kind of diving a little more in depth with it. But
Mm-hmm.
Georgia is going to be fine, regardless of whether Jared Curtis ends up being a Georgia Bulldog or does not. They'll be fine. Kirby Smart has, with the exception of Justin Fields, feels like he's been on the right side of his quarterback controversies throughout the year,
Mm-hmm.
and the decisions that he's made. Take Dylan Raiola, who just a couple of years ago spurned Georgia, chose Nebraska. Now you've got Raiola, who has had two mediocre seasons at Nebraska in terms of their record,
Mm-hmm.
and suffered an injury in the middle part of this year, and now is looking at a potential transfer, per the reporting earlier this year. So that's really your most recent example of this. Gunnar Stockton will be back next year. Jared Curtis had an expressed desire to play as a freshman. That was not something that he was going to be able to do at Georgia. It just
Mm-hmm.
wasn't. It would take some kind of large shift in thinking in NFL circles about Gunnar Stockton and where
Mm-hmm.
he would be drafted in order for Curtis to be able to start as a freshman at UGA.
Yeah.
So that was never going to happen. And the reason that I caution everybody on being like this is an earthquake or a ground shattering move.
Mm-hmm.
It's big. This moment is big for Vanderbilt in terms of the type of commit they can land.
Mm-hmm.
But the circumstances lined up perfectly. This isn't something that is going to be a consistent Vanderbilt's landing these kind of kids on a year in, year out basis. I
Mm-hmm.
need to see from Vanderbilt a much more steady level, a higher, more steady level of recruiting out of them. I need to see some continuance of success. This is a one-off thing. I get it. They beat Alabama last year. They were 6-6 last year.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't a great football team last year. The reason they are where they are is because they built through the transfer portal. And as people at Florida State have shown you, and there's
Mm-hmm.
tons of other examples, but boy, is that the most glaring, is that if you build your program solely through the transfer portal, you will get burned. That's
Mm-hmm.
the reason I said I need to see the success on the recruiting trail on a more consistent basis. I need to see them be successful next year without Diego Pavia at the helm
Right.
in order for me to consider Vanderbilt as moving themselves up. Because another thing that people don't think about is the fact that where was LSU this year? They were in the basement. Where was Florida this year? They were in the basement. Where was Auburn this year? They were also in the basement. All of these programs are programs that, when they get the right guy in charge, kind of send well past Vanderbilt and leave them hanging around in the rearview mirror. So, as much as I think Vanderbilt has taken advantage of every opportunity they've been given, I think they also have been have been the recipient of a weaker SEC in terms of some of the powers that be.
Yeah, I mean, let's just look at this way. Kirby, the at Georgia, Alabama, with the Boer, Texas A&M. You know, they don't recruit; they just choose. You know,
Hmm.
it's at that point in time when when Kirby Smart picks up the phone to speak to Mrs. Jones about her son. Mrs. Jones's son has been vetted by four different recruiting people at the university. Um, so at that point in time, when you create that kind of level, and and Ryan the way he has it at Ohio State, you know, you don't, you really, you really don't have to recruit. I mean, people are tripping all over themselves to want to play for you.
Hmm.
So I think that you lose a guy, right? Okay, well, I lost a guy. Um, I got three others behind him.
Hmm.
So, it does make a big splash, but as you mentioned, those of us who actually watch this for a living see that happen all the time.
Hmm. Yeah. And I did think about this, or I've thought about this as the news came out. And I root for Georgia. I'd
Mhm.
be lying if I said I didn't. So I have a bit of a vested interest in it. And when that news came, the one thought I had was just, all right, like I wasn't going to lose any sleep over Jared Curtis flipping
Mhm.
his commitment and Georgia not having that quarterback. And so I really what I thought about was, Ed Helms' character in The Office, Andy. He gives
Mhm.
that quote, I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before they've left you.
Right.
Something along those lines.
Right.
If you're a Georgia fan, you are in the good old days. You've got to
Mhm.
relish in it, because it says a whole lot about a program for you to lose the number one quarterback in the class, number one player in the class, and
Mhm.
just kind of go, you know, like, yeah, it stinks, but hey, we got the guy who's leading us to an SEC title coming back next year. Oh
Right.
yeah, our roster's really young. We're going to be fine moving forward. Basically in a sense of, like, Vanderbilt needed this one more than we did. Like, we're going to
Right.
find something on the backside here. Maybe we'll backfill with a body. I don't know. Um, but Georgia's going to be fine. It's a statement to where Kirby Smart has that program right now.
Sure. I mean, and when he was there before he was picking coaches for other schools, Nick Saban was in that boat,
Hmm.
and Sarkeesian is getting there at Texas. Elko, I think, has built a culture at A&M that people like.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, this was one of those years where Florida and, as you said, Florida, Auburn, some of the teams who usually are very competitive in the conference didn't have a good year,
Hmm.
and we
Yeah,
got three American conference coaches who are now in the SEC.
yeah. Just a wild coaching cycle that is still seemingly far from over.
Hmm.
There's rumblings about another opening. Based on everything that I can glean, up north as well in the Big Ten.
Well, Michigan State,
Michigan State has, well, they have fired Jonathan Smith and
right?
hired Pat Fitzgerald. Yeah, that
That's
was
what I'm
a
saying.
big point.
Yeah,
I I wonder if the rumblings aren't pointing to the other institution in that state as well, and their thoughts on a potential head coaching move.
100%. I mean, Michigan loses to Ohio State, and
Hmm.
and the world comes to an end.
Yeah.
And it's really not fair, but life isn't fair, and specifically college football isn't fair
Nope.
um, in that regard. I mean, I know we got to get out here in a couple of minutes just because coming up at 5 o'clock is a Pennington, or sorry, 4 o'clock is a Pennington basketball game, which we
Hmm.
hope that you all stick around to watch. But Rock Riley, a buddy of mine, um, who covers sports in Tampa, shot me a text and said, "Do you know what John Gruden is doing?" And I said, "No." Figuring out he meant what he's doing in general. It's like, no.
Hmm.
He said he's the assistant coach at Carrollwood Carrollwood Academy, which is a private school where his son goes, um, in Tampa. And right now he's running. He's the offensive coordinator for the team. And so Rock knows him and walks up and said, "Hey, if USF called you, would you take the call?" He goes, "Of course I'd take the call." He goes, "I used to
Hmm.
go to practice with Golish." So
Yeah.
I don't think he's taking the job. But the joke with Rock was, I wonder what his buyout is at Tampa, at the high school in Tampa. So you
Hmm.
know, good to know that John loves to coach. I mean, we know that.
Yeah.
But he's got some baggage there that might be a little bit tough to get over, um,
Hmm.
in that regard. It's not like he needs the money. Um, I think he thought he was going to get an SEC job.
Yeah, his best shot at that would have been with Arkansas. In that
Mhm.
coaching search that they ran down there. But to be honest with you, I'm not sure that Arkansas really knew what kind of coaching search they were running while they were running it. So,
That's true.
you know, would
Yeah,
would you want that job really if you're not set up in a place to be successful in any time of long term output?
yeah. I think his age at 62,
Hmm.
um, and pair that with the baggage. He's not your long term coach.
Yeah.
Now, if he truly wants to coach and just and thinks that I got 5 or 10 more years in me, right?
Hmm.
Then if he wanted the job at USF, I don't know whether they give it to him, but you know it would be something that he could do. I mean, because he lives a 20-minute drive from the campus, so um, that might not be a bad thing. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see how it is. But I just thought that was kind of funny that John is actually serving as offensive coordinator, um, at a high school football team in Tampa.
Hmm.
My guess, by the way, Rock made it clear that John made it clear that he's an unpaid member of the coaching staff.
Yeah.
So anybody's got $60 million in the bank doesn't really necessarily need that high school coaching stipend.
No, I think he would have been all right without it. I'm gonna go out.
Yeah, he'll get by. He'll get
Yeah. Yeah, it feels pretty safe to assume.
Yeah, there you go. One last thing. I don't know if you watched. I watched a little bit of the game last night.
Mhm.
I didn't. I The game wasn't good,
Mhm.
but those two teams, the hitting that was going on, my God, they
Yeah.
were they were pounding each other.
Yeah. That was honestly some a little bit interesting to see on a Monday night football game, all things considered.
Hmm.
Hey, it makes you wonder if maybe there was some bad blood between those two teams. I mean, they were popping pads yesterday, which in terms of entertainment, the harder you hit, the more entertaining it's going to be to watch.
Hmm.
So there is that aspect of things. But man, there were a lot of people that were not happy with that hit on Jackson Dart last night.
Oh, the one where he was almost out of bounds, but
Yeah,
that guy laid a lick. I mean,
yeah,
that
he did.
was
And if you're Jackson Dart, man, just
get out
eat
of
the
bounds,
extra yard and a half, get out of bounds. Don't take
right?
that hit. You just came back from a concussion.
Right.
Like, what are we doing?
It's like,
You know,
guys, did you
play a
not learn
little.
anything? Right.
Yeah, like you
I don't
guys
know
have
who I
played
can't
so.
remember who was it on New York who got the N on the NY knocked off his helmet. I mean, they showed it. It looked like it looked like that helmet had been in a car crash.
Yeah, Hey, but I'll take that game over a lot of the other products that we can get. I
Oh no,
prefer
I'm just
the
saying it was. I just hadn't seen that kind of that was old school football.
yeah. I for my money, I enjoy watching a good, like a disciplined, fast defense fly
Hmm.
around and make plays better than I do watching an offense open it up and score
Hmm.
100.
Right.
It's good defense is really fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, it's the old Steelers defenses, the Bears defenses, all of them.
Hmm.
These were fun to watch.
Yeah.
All right, man. I'll tell you what. We gotta. Thanks to everybody for joining us. We got to get out of here because Pennington's coming up at 4 o'clock. If you like high school basketball, they've got. They're one of the best teams in New Jersey, and they play pretty good football up there in Jersey. So
Hmm.
if you can't make it to the game, no problem. Just check it out. It's coming up next right here on Capital Sports. We will be back tomorrow. Um, and we promise not to talk much about Lane Kiffin anymore. But
Hmm.
I'm sure that we will have something to say about how these upcoming rankings, which will come out tonight, how they will affect things going forward. So there you go.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right, gang. Have a great day. We'll see you. Bye bye. You know what?